question is going to go to probably the #1 topic that a lot of you have been talking about, which is taxes in the city of Crosse. Many of the residents here, I'm sure, would feel that taxes are too high in the city. Are you going to cut taxes? And if so, what programs specifically would you cut to be able to make that happen?
Okay, #1, first of all, I don't plan on cutting anything, but I do plan on freezing everything. What you got, you're not getting no more. Don't bring a nickel more to the budget next year because you're not going to get it. We're going to stay where we're at for at least the first 4 years I'm in office. We are not going to increase everything. And if there is any cuts, it will be in overtime. We're going to take a hard look at overtime, see what's going on there. If there is excess of overtime or there's nothing we can do about the snowfall, but I think in other situations we can take a look at overtime. So in 1 minute, freeze.
I think definitely the taxes need to be brought down, and to look for cuts, I think we need to go across the board with each department and ask each department individually to contribute to the cuts. Not one department specifically can bear the burden of reducing the tax burden on each individual in the city. So ultimately we have to go to each department and challenge them. We need you to bring your budget down. Times are tough, and not just our local economy or state economy, but our national economy, and everybody's going to have to reduce in these situations. So we have to talk to each individual that works for the city. Everybody, where the money is being spent, we have to look for efficiency. I think we should target no one department individually, but we should look across the board, because great challenges will ultimately produce great works. So if we talk to each department head, each supervisor, and each employee all the way down the line, everybody gets working together on this.
Thank you. Taxes are too high. In the city of Crosse, they've been too high for the past 30 years. Certainly the mayor has some influence over the city council, but the city council ultimately makes the decision on what the city budget is going to be. As mayor, you set priorities within that budget, and those priorities are set through the parameters of the state, in that you have a levy limit, which is your ceiling, and an expenditure restraint, which is your floor. I've taken the tack that we're not going to cut services within the city of Crosse, that we're going to generate additional revenue, because there's really two sides to a budget. There's the one side of expenditures, and there's the other side of revenue. And if you can continue to grow the tax base, you don't have to worry about cutting yourself in a city budget situation. I think that that's really what I've taken as a tack over the last 4 years. The mill rate has increased less than the rate of inflation, 5.8% over the last 4 years. And yet the city council has passed my budgets with less than 1% change to the overall budget each and every year that I've been mayor. So I think that we've set priorities within the budget, we've maintained the services that we're currently providing, and yet at the same time, we're looking to generate revenue. We've had over $189 million in new construction growth, which means tax base, and that tax base is coming into our budget through tax incremental finance revenue. You have to remember, when looking at the budget, there's $68 million in the budget, $33 million comes from property taxes, the rest comes from other revenue sources, and tax incremental finance districts and the revenue thereof are very important.
Yes, you're right to ask that as the first question, because that is the #1 issue. When I talk to anyone, we're all worried about our taxes. Homeowners are wondering how they're going to keep living in the city of La Crosse, how they're going to stay in their home. Earlier this year, I sponsored legislation to bring the department heads and the city council members together through a retreat process, and that was to set goals. One of the #1 goals we all had out of that process was the tax situation in La Crosse. I think there is something that together we can do to work on this issue, and I hope that we proceed with these meetings in the future and work on this. Regional collaboration, sharing resources with the outlying areas, trying to be more efficient. I think those are all things that will come into play as we look at this issue. We do have to do something.
Thank you very much. Our taxes are a serious problem. Whenever I talk to anybody since I started this campaign, actually long before that, since I've been on the city council, the absolute #1 complaint is our outrageous taxes. La Crosse has the highest mill rate of any city in the state of Wisconsin with a population of over 3,000 people. That's a crown we don't need to wear. Now, what can we do about it? That's fair. First off, we have to will the people on the city council, we have to will the administration to lower taxes. They don't have to be this high, and we can do this without cutting services. Unfortunately, the threat we always get is, oh, we won't have as many firemen, we won't have as many policemen, we'll have to stop the technology. I don't believe that at all. The first thing I would do is propose to hire a consulting firm to check these cities from all the way from the airport to zoning, to make sure that everything is as efficient as possible. Because I know there are departments that are overstaffed, I know there are departments that are understaffed, that just simply has to be corrected. The second thing is that, as I've said all along, I would talk to each individual employee, not to dish on the boss, but to get the straight story on their job. So, because nobody knows that job better than the person doing it. And this should give us enough ammunition to streamline City Hall and make it all work.
Thank you very much. And I agree, we need to study the efficiency of the operations. We're just spending way too much money, and we need to address that issue. Tighten the belt. We do it at home, we need to do it at City Hall. There's always a better way of doing business, and we need to address that. Last year in 2008, there was $1.2 million in overtime costs. As Mayor of Crosse in 2009, I will certainly address why we're spending all that money. $415,000 more than last year. Now, there's something wrong with the way we're doing business down at City Hall, and I will make that a priority. I also agree we need to share with the other communities on some of the things that we are doing. Duplication of services is one of them as well. So we need to just take a look at every department at City Hall and address those issues. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. If you look at my buttons or my posters, it says responsible spending. Today I missed a very important forum because the city had paid $50 to me to go to the Dells for a training course. To me, $50 was $50. That's why I wasn't at the forum this morning. And as far as, Dorothy was talking about their retreat, how much did that cost the city of La Crosse? There's money we could have saved right there. And then she talked about sharing services. And she's the one that wants to hire a sustainability coordinator, where I would say we would share the one with the county. There's wasteful spending there. The Naval Reserve's been empty now. They knew it was going to be empty for 2 years. Why aren't there plans in place for a cul-de-sac with 8 new houses to increase the tax base? And also, as far as the employees, everybody always wants to kick the employees on this. The people at City Hall, they have jobs, they have families, they pay their taxes. It's not their fault. They've already cut a lot of jobs in City Hall. My 17 and a half years of the city, I've seen where the job cuts have been. I see the equipment that's bought at the end of the year on year-end spending, that'll come to an end. But as far as the employees, it's cheaper sometimes to pay the overtime than it is to pay the benefits. And right now, a lot of those employees have added workloads. So, yeah, the overtime looks good on paper to complain about, but what would it cost? I mean, we probably have, just in water alone, we've lost 5 jobs in the last 3 years. So we're getting the work done, but and it created a little overtime. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come with something online from Dr. Joe Heimer. He's a faculty here at the Crosse.
My question is an economic development and jobs question. As mayor, what would you do to improve the business climate of the city of La Crosse?
Thank you, Joe. Before we start, I'd just like to, express appreciation. The first time all the candidates have agreed that the taxes are too high in the city of La Crosse. It may not seem like much, but to me that's monumental, because now we can start moving forward. It's the first time I've ever heard that. I've become this one. But moving forward to job development, the first thing we can do to increase job development in the city of La Crosse is solicit development. Number one, I don't think we've been doing soliciting of development, and ever since I remember the last 4 years, for sure, we have not solicited development in the quantity that I would like to see. I think we definitely need to be moving forward, making active calls to hundreds, thousands of companies, and we can definitely get that done in 4 years, to ask them to come to us. I know right now I work as a business development coordinator, and when we show up at meetings, we get put on the agenda at county board meetings, city council meetings. Most of them are pretty impressed that we're taking the time and energy to show up there, and that shows us one. When someone receives a phone call, when someone shows up at a meeting as a representative of a company, that impresses people. It does. It goes a long way. Right now, I don't think we're doing any of that. And for one, actively soliciting development is what we need to do and what will help the city move forward.
Councilor